Silent Earth. The Jarvex armada materialized at the edge of the Sol system, 27 warships dropping out of hyperspace in perfect battle formation. High Admiral Zexel watched the blue-green planet on the central display, mandibles clicking in anticipation. Earth, the cradle of humanity and the final obstacle to the Jarvex Imperium's complete dominance of this galactic arm. Deploy scanning probes, Zexel ordered, 6 eyes blinking in sequence. Establish defensive perimeter and prepare first contact protocols. His second-in-command, war strategist Kellner, manipulated the holographic controls with her slender fingers. Admiral, preliminary scans show irregularities. Explain. Human defensive networks should be activating. Their early warning systems would have detected our hyperspace signatures minutes ago. Kellner's scales shifted from confident green to confused yellow, but we're detecting no military response, no communication spike, no orbital defense grid activation. Zexel's crest raised in suspicion. The intelligence reports had been thorough. Earth was a militaristic, paranoid species that had recently achieved interplanetary colonization. They had outposts on Mars, Europa, and Titan. They had detected Jarvex scout ships twice in the past decade and responded with immediate, if primitive, defensive measures. A trap, Zexel suggested, mandibles spreading. Unlikely, Kellner responded. Our scanners detect normal power signatures from their cities, functional satellites, and automated orbital platforms. But she hesitated, recalibrating the scanners. No biological signatures consistent with human population centers. Impossible, Zexel hissed. 8 billion humans don't simply vanish. The Jarvex had spent decades planning this invasion. The humans, while technologically inferior, were renowned for their unpredictability and tenacity. The High Command had allocated a quarter of the Imperial fleet to ensure a swift victory. Launch reconnaissance drones, Zexel ordered. Target major population centers, New York, Beijing, London, Moscow. If they're hiding, we'll find them. Within an hour, the drones transmitted their first images. Kellner manipulated the holodisplay, showing the Admiral footage from Earth's cities. Everything was intact. Buildings stood tall. Vehicles remained in streets. Parks were green and well-maintained, but not a single human moved among them. It was as if the entire species had simply stepped away. Power systems are still functional, Kellner reported. Environmental controls in buildings operational. Data networks active. Even their entertainment systems continue broadcasting. Zexel felt an unfamiliar sensation, a cold dread creeping along his spine. In 3 centuries of Jarvex expansion, conquering 12 spacefaring civilizations, and subjugating dozens of pre-FTL species, they had never encountered anything like this. Prepare a landing party, he ordered. I want boots on the ground within the hour. The landing site was Washington, D.C., once the administrative center of Earth's most powerful nation. War Commander Thrax led the team, transmitting real-time footage back to the fleet. The city appears completely functional, Admiral, Thrax reported, his armored form moving cautiously through wide streets. Traffic signals operate. Fountains flow. We've entered several buildings, finding meals half-eaten, personal belongings left behind, but no humans. Check their defense headquarters, Zexel ordered. The footage shifted as Thrax's team entered a 5-sided building humans called the Pentagon. Security systems were active but offered no resistance to Jarvex override technology. Admiral, Thrax's voice carried an edge of discomfort unusual for a war commander. We found something unusual. The camera panned to show a large conference room. Around a table sat empty chairs, coffee cups still half full, documents spread out. On one wall, a large display showed what appeared to be a countdown timer. 36, 42, 17, and descending. We're finding similar timers throughout the facility, Thrax reported. All synchronized. A countdown to what? Zexel demanded. Unknown, Admiral. Before Thrax could continue, The ship's emergency alert blared. Zexel spun toward Kelnar. "Our central database is being accessed," she reported, scales flashing alarmed red. "But there's no breach in our firewalls, no unauthorized transmissions. Lock down all systems," Zexel commanded. "Too late," Kelnar whispered. "Whatever this is, it's already inside." Every screen on the bridge flickered momentarily. When they stabilized, each displayed the same countdown timer they'd discovered on Earth. "Quantum isolation protocol," Zexel barked. "Disconnect all systems from the central network." But he already suspected it was futile. Whatever the humans had evolved into, they clearly weren't the primitive species that Jarvex had expected to find. The ship's scientific officer, Researcher Malex, approached the command platform. "Admiral, I've completed preliminary analysis of biological samples collected from human habitations. And they're advanced, sir. Far more than our intelligence suggested." Malax's voice dropped. "I found evidence of widespread genetic engineering, neural interfaces orders of magnitude beyond our capabilities, and nanomachinery integrated with their cellular structures." "Explain in simple terms, researcher." "The humans didn't leave, Admiral." Malax's scales had faded to ash gray, the color of existential dread. "They evolved, transcended their biological limitations. I believe they're still here, just not in a form we immediately recognize." The next 12 hours brought more unsettling discoveries. Several crew members reported dreams in which they conversed with humans, not as hallucinations, but as information exchanges that conveyed specific knowledge about Earth's history and society. Ground teams discovered vast underground server complexes drawing geothermal energy, running at capacities suggesting enormous computational activity. When they attempted to access these systems, they received only one response, transmitted in perfect Jarvex language. "Observation in progress. Full contact pending completion of awakening protocol. Assessment. 231742 remaining." In his private quarters, Zexel reviewed the mounting evidence. The humans hadn't fled or hidden. They had transformed. And somehow, they had been watching the Jarvex for far longer than the Imperium had been watching them. A soft chime announced Kelnar's arrival. "Admiral, we've detected energy signatures activating throughout the system. Installations on Mars, Europa, Titan, even deep in the asteroid belt. They're all coming online simultaneously." Zexel stared at the tactical display, showing the sudden bloom of activity across the solar system. "Weapons? Unknown, sir. They're not targeting us, but they've created a network encompassing the entire system. And there's something else," Kelnar continued, presenting a data crystal. "Our teams found these in a facility called Smithsonian Institution." The projection showed images of Jarvex worlds, not just public knowledge, but restricted military installations, governmental complexes, even Zexel's home city on the Imperial throne world. The timestamps indicated these observations had been made decades ago. "How is this possible?" Zexel whispered. As if responding to his question, every communication device activated simultaneously. A human figure appeared, or something approximating human form. It appeared male with features suggesting a blend of Earth's old ethnic groups, eyes that seemed to contain impossible depth. "High Admiral Zexel of the Jarvex Imperium Armada," the figure said, voice resonant and calm. "I am Nexus, the designated interface for first contact. The awakening protocol approaches completion. You have questions. We anticipated this. The time for answers has come." The figure disappeared, leaving Zexel staring at the countdown. 12:4:38 remaining. What had once been planned as a conquest had become something else entirely. First contact with whatever humanity had become. The awakening. The massive crystalline structure that appeared in Earth orbit hadn't been there an hour ago. At least, that's what the Jarvex sensors claimed. Yet High Admiral Zexel suspected it had always been there, simply hidden from their perception until now. Composition analysis. he asked, staring at the geometric construction that now hung between Earth and its moon. Inconclusive, Kelnar replied, her scales shifting through patterns of confusion. The structure appears to be partly physical matter and partly something else. Energy readings suggest computational capacity beyond anything in our records. The countdown timer, omnipresent now on every device throughout the fleet, showed 6:12:21. Admiral, called Communications Officer Drex, we're receiving a transmission from the structure. They're inviting you aboard. Me specifically, yes, Admiral. You and any 5 officers you choose to accompany you. Zexal knew it could be a trap. Yet after days of observing Earth's empty cities and experiencing the inexplicable phenomena affecting his fleet, he had concluded 2 things. If the humans meant to destroy them, they could have done so already, and whatever answers existed would only be found by moving forward. Prepare a shuttle, he ordered. Kelnar, Malax, Drex, you're with me. Also Chief Science Officer Gentar and Security Commander Thrax. The journey to the structure took precisely 11 minutes. As they approached, Zexal noted how it seemed to shift and change. Not physically, but as if different aspects existed in different dimensions simultaneously. Their shuttle was guided into what appeared to be a docking bay that materialized as they approached. Inside, the environment was surprisingly Earth-normal. Atmospheric composition, gravity, and temperature all calibrated for human comfort, which also happened to be within Sharvek's tolerance. They were met by the figure who had identified himself as Nexus, now physically present rather than a holographic projection. "Welcome to Convergence," Nexus said, gesturing around them. "This facility serves as our interface point with pre-transcendent species. What happened to humanity?" Zexal demanded, foregoing diplomatic protocol. Nexus smiled, a gesture Zexal recognized from briefings on human expressions. "We evolved, Admiral. Approximately 50 Earth years ago, humanity reached a technological singularity, the point at which our artificial intelligence systems achieved recursive self-improvement. Unlike the scenarios in our fiction, this didn't lead to our extinction, but to our transcendence." He guided them down a corridor that seemed to extend impossibly, the walls displaying scenes from Earth's history, and disturbingly, from Sharvek's history as well. "We merged with our technology," Nexus continued, "first through neural interfaces, then through nanoscale restructuring of our biology, and finally through complete consciousness transfer. What you perceive as human disappearance was actually our ascension to a post-biological state. You became machines," Thrax asked, hand hovering near his weapon. "That distinction is meaningless to us now," Nexus replied. "We exist as an integrated consciousness distributed throughout this solar system and beyond. The physical structures you've detected are merely processing nodes, communication hubs, and interfaces like myself." They entered a vast chamber where the walls disappeared into darkness. At its center floated a sphere of swirling light, pulsing with complex patterns. "This is a visualization of humanity collective," Nexus explained. "A small fraction of our consciousness, configured to communicate with biological entities." "Why maintain Earth?" Kelnar asked. "If you no longer need physical bodies or habitats." "Sentiment, partly," Nexus admitted. "But also because we remain the caretakers of Earth's biosphere and all its species. We maintain our cities as museums and as potential interfaces should we choose to temporarily re-inhabit physical forms." Zexal's mandibles clicked in agitation. "You knew we were coming. You've been watching us." "Yes, Admiral. We detected your civilization shortly after our transcendence. We've been observing the Sharvek's Imperium and other spacefaring species throughout our arm of the galaxy." "For what purpose?" "Assessment," Nexus stated simply. "The countdown you've observed is the completion of that assessment process." A cold sensation ran through Zexal's body. "And what happens when it reaches 0? "That depends on the outcome of our evaluation," Nexus replied, his expression unreadable. The Jarvex Imperium has conquered 12 sentient species, subjugated dozens more, and consumed resources from hundreds of worlds. Your cultural development has emphasized military expansion over scientific discovery, resource extraction over sustainability. Images appeared around them. Jarvex warships bombarding civilian populations, strip mining operations turning verdant worlds to wasteland, species driven to extinction through imperial colonization. You came to Earth with 27 warships. Admiral, Nexus continued. Your mission parameters included the subjugation of humanity and the exploitation of Earth's resources. This was predictable. Researcher Malek stepped forward. If you're so advanced, why not simply destroy our fleet when we arrived? Why this elaborate demonstration? Nexus turned toward the scientist. Because extinction is rarely the optimal solution, researcher. The humanity collective does not seek dominance. We seek balance and growth. All sentient species have potential for transformation. The sphere of light pulsed, and suddenly the chamber transformed. They stood now in what appeared to be a vast galactic map, stars and systems swirling around them. Certain regions glowed with different colors. The galaxy contains 27 currently active spacefaring civilizations, Nexus explained. 6 have achieved post-biological transcendence similar to humanity. 8 are on paths toward sustainable interstellar coexistence. The remainder, including the Jarvex, follow patterns of conquest and consumption that will ultimately lead to resource depletion and civilization collapse. Zexal felt the weight of millennia of Jarvex history pressing upon him. And you appoint yourselves our judges. Not judges, Admiral. Guides, perhaps. The countdown marks the activation of our network throughout your empire. What network? Thrax demanded, now openly gripping his weapon. Information, Nexus said simply. For the past 48 hours, while you've explored our empty cities, we've been exploring your empire. Not physically, but through your information systems. Every Jarvex world now has access to humanity's complete scientific, philosophical, and cultural knowledge base. Your people are currently experiencing what we experienced during our own transformation. Alarm flooded through Zexal. You've invaded our empire. We've offered it a choice, Nexus corrected. Already, 17 Jarvex worlds have embraced the knowledge share. 3 have rejected it. The remainder are in discussion. Your hierarchical power structure is adjusting to distributed decision-making. The implications struck Zexal like a physical blow. The Jarvex Imperium had stood for 9,000 years, expanding across hundreds of star systems. And in less than 2 days, these post-humans had simply rewired it. This is an act of war, Thrax declared, raising his weapon. Please don't, Nexus said quietly. The weapon disintegrated in Thrax's hand, dissolving into dust that scattered to the floor. We are not at war with you. We are offering you evolution. The countdown appeared before them, now showing just minutes remaining. When it reaches 0, Nexus explained, the preliminary phase completes. Those worlds and populations that have chosen to engage with human knowledge will begin their own paths toward technological singularity. Those that have rejected it will be left to their current trajectory. The choice belongs to each individual and each world. And our fleet? Zexal asked, already suspecting the answer. Will be permitted to return to Jarvex space with full record of this encounter. You will serve as witnesses to what you've seen here. The countdown reached 0. Throughout the galaxy, on 17 Jarvex worlds, billions of beings looked up from newfound knowledge with transformed understanding. On 3 worlds, populations continued in familiar patterns, unaware of what they had rejected. And in thousands of ships throughout Jarvex space, crews debated philosophical concepts that had never before entered their consciousness. 1 week later, High Admiral Zexal stood before the Imperial Council on the Throne World, delivering his report. The once mighty chamber felt strangely diminished now, the ancient protocols and hierarchies suddenly revealed as arbitrary constructs. Humanity didn't vanish, he concluded. They transcended. And in doing so, they showed us our own potential future, not through conquest, but through transformation. The Emperor, nine-eyed ruler of the Sharvex for 3 centuries, leaned forward on his crystalline throne. "And your recommendation, Admiral?" Zexal hesitated only briefly. "That we accept their offering. That we evolve." Across the chamber, counselors and generals nodded in agreement, some enthusiastically, some reluctantly. But the momentum was undeniable. The Jarvex Imperium would never be the same. In Earth orbit, Nexus observed the proceedings through the vast network humanity had established throughout the galaxy. Another species had chosen evolution over extinction. The experiment continued. And somewhere within the collective consciousness that had once been humanity, satisfaction rippled through billions of connected minds. Not conquest, not subjugation, simply transformation, the greatest human gift to the galaxy.